Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jessica Ventura, and I'm part of the grad recruitment team here at UC Merced. And just to confirm, you all are at the Office of International Affairs office hour for our pre-grow session. So with that, we'll go ahead and let the team introduce themselves. I'll let the grad div team go first, and then we'll turn it over to the OIA team so they can say hi to all of you. So Jen, you want to go ahead and say good morning?
Sure. Yes. Thanks, Jess. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jen Carlton. We may have met already in our pre-grow session last week, but it is so great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're all from different parts of the world and different time zones, so we appreciate you taking the time and the energy to come and join us and learn a little bit more about what it looks like to be an international student here at UC Merced. And we have two great, very seasoned veterans in international affairs that will be able to help you answer most of your questions and guide you throughout this process, which I know can be a little stressful. So we're really excited to have you here. And I think we can start off by saying, if you just want to throw in the chat, where you're from and maybe what graduate group, so that we can start to see where people are and you can kind of start to make connections with folks. I think that would be great. And then I'm going to go ahead and send it over to Martine.
Hi, everybody. My name is Martin. I work here in the recruitment team with Jess. We're excited to have you all here. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Lacey.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lacey Long-Behar. Probably a familiar name by now. I'm the International Student Visa Specialist at UC Merced in the Office of International Affairs. I've been in communication with most, if not all of you, and I'm really excited to get to talk to you today. And I'm going to hand it over to Becky.
Hi there, my name is Becky Mirza, and I also work in the Office of International Affairs. I'm the Assistant Director, so very nice to meet you, and thank you for joining.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and get started here. This is really an informal webinar, really a chance for international students or F1 and J1 visa holders to talk to our team and get your questions answered. So we've been doing our best to communicate with you, get to know you, guide you through the process of obtaining your visa and arriving in the United States. But now I know that you must have other questions that you'd like to pose. They could be about a myriad of subjects. Perhaps it's about arrival, perhaps it's about that visa process or something else that you've been on your mind. And so I encourage you to take this opportunity to connect with the other international students on here and also with us. You can ask questions in the chat and we will address those. If you don't feel comfortable writing them in there with your name, you can send it to one of us separately. Also, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask questions as well. Really, we want to make this a chance to just get to know each other, be informal, and provide as many resources as we possibly can. If we don't have the answer to your question, we will do our best to follow up and get you to the right resources. So with that, if anyone has something they'd like a question, or even if you just want to introduce yourself, feel free to unmute yourself or put that information in the chat and we're happy to get started from there. I see a lot of people are introducing themselves in chat. Thank you for that. Great. Do we have any burning questions that have been on your mind that you'd like to start with, or a topic you'd like to discuss just to get moving forward? Everyone's good. No one has questions. So I know I've been in communication with most of you about getting your I-20 or your DS 2019 and starting that process of obtaining your visa. And I'm happy and pleased to hear from many of you that you've successfully scheduled appointments. Many of you have actually already gone to appointments and either are in administrative processing or have received your visa approvals, which is fantastic. Please keep that good news coming to us so we can make sure that we know at what point in the process you are and can keep our records updated too to know when we can expect you. So any questions about visas, perhaps scheduling issues, anything like that? If you have questions about arrival, when to arrive, questions about resources for finding housing, all of that information we can help with. So please feel free. Again, this is an informal Q&A. This is your chance. We're here to help and provide information or to connect you with each other. So I see, again, you guys are great. You're introducing yourself in chat. Do take the opportunity to reach out to each other. Okay, we have a question. Okay, Shicheng, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Okay, my question is about visa because I got a visa that is valid for a year, and I think probably in some point of my study, I will have to leave US and re-enter the States. So I would like to know what is the recommended strategy for like to get another F1 visa, like when the current one is no longer valid. I've seen some people, since California is very close to Mexico, and I've seen some people that they don't like, because for me, I'm from China. If I want to renew it here, I would have to travel for a very long time, and I see some people they renew it at Mexico. Would that be recommended? Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So great questions. So as you noted, you received a visa that was granted for 1 year. Now, not for the entire length of your program, and that's absolutely okay. The first thing I want to say is that the visa that you get when you interview and that gets put into your passport, that visa is used for permission to enter the United States, right? It's used for permission to enter, not to remain here. So even if your visa in your passport expires during your program of study, you can remain in the United States as long as you're maintaining your F1 or J1 status. And you do that by enrolling in courses, and you see that on your I-94, your arrival record. All of that is what's important, is that you're maintaining your visa status. But as you noted, you might need to leave the country during your degree program after that initial visa has expired. And so if that's the case, if you need to travel internationally and then re-enter, but your visa is expired, then you would need to renew your F1 or your J1 visa abroad before re-entering the country. So you're asking about like best strategies and that type of thing. The renewal process is very similar to the initial process of getting your visa. You go through the same thing. You schedule an appointment. You have your DS-160 that you do the application for. And then you schedule your appointment. A lot of times when you've already gotten your visa and you're doing a visa renewal, many embassies, US embassies, will waive the in-person interview, but you still have to be abroad in order to obtain a renewed visa. You cannot renew your visa from within the United States. So as you were asking, flying all the way for you to your home country of China can, it's a lot financially, it's a lot of time, and there's an expectation that you may be in China longer than you expect. This is the case. So you can do it in your home country. As you noted, some students will interview and renew or get their initial visas from a third country. So that's called interviewing in a third country, like Mexico or Canada, because they're close to the United States. You can do, and there's pros and cons to that. So when you interview in a third country, usually, there's a different type of scheduling system for that. If you're a third country national, or if you're a national of that country, there's different scheduling for that. So there may be more availability or there may be less. It's just something you have to look at. Also, usually the embassy officials, they'll want to know why you're interviewing in a third country and not your own country. So the consular official may ask those questions and you need to be prepared to answer those. Also, if your a visa renewal application undergoes administrative processing, which is like extensive background checks, right? And that's common, more and more common for many students, particularly from countries like China, Iran, Pakistan, other places. Their applications will undergo administrative processing. If you're in a third country, let's say you do go to Mexico, like you said, to renew your visa, you should be prepared that you may be staying in Mexico longer than expected. So do you have the financial means and the ability to stay in that third country and wait out for your visa or not? And if for any reason your visa is denied, you wouldn't be able to re-enter the US. You would have to leave from there. So it's really a decision, a personal decision that you have to make when it comes time for you, if you would like to renew your visa so you can travel internationally after it's expired, where you do that. And I encourage you to use breaks like summer breaks or winter breaks to schedule those types of appointments. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. It looks like we have some other questions. I thought I saw Martine's hand go up first.
Yep. Yeah, Lacey, let's go Martine, and then I'm going to mispronounce this, so apologies ahead of time. I'll try my best, but Edge.
Thank you. I have a question.
And then we'll go Annabelle, just in that order, and then we have some chat. So go ahead, Martine.
I have a question from a student saying, are there soft loans for international students for settling down in the first month?
Okay, so great question as well. Yeah, absolutely. When you first arrive, I know finances are always a concern, especially when you're looking for housing. So the university itself doesn't offer loans, but what I can encourage you to do is to look for personal loans that you can apply for. So, I think we've had students in the past, and Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've had students in the past who've applied through like Discover have gotten personal loans, another one through a bank that got a personal loan. There are some scholarships that are available to international students, but that disbursement probably wouldn't line up with what you're hoping for as far as soft loans go. But that really is what I can offer that way. If anyone else has anything they'd like to add to that, please feel free.
Yeah, soft loans are really, really difficult, especially when you first arrive, because you need a social security number, and that in itself takes time. So, and then in addition, so I wouldn't rely on a soft loan, especially within your first 6 months of arriving.
Okay, all right, thank you both. Let's go with Ajay.
Hi. So I've been working under STEM OPT, and my company applied for H-1B this year. So I'll be switching my status for H-1B and applying for CAP while the application processes. I was told by my lawyers that I can still pursue the graduate program under H-1B, given that I'm a part-time student. What are the policies of UC Merced for H-1B visa holders?
Well, okay, so have you already received your H-1B approval, Ajay, or are you still waiting for that?
So we have finished the application documents yesterday, so our lawyers will be sending them out this week. So I should get the notice pretty soon. Then I was gonna go on.
Are you using premium processing for that H-1B application?
No.
Then that's going to take 4 to 5 months for that approval at least. But
yeah, I think at this point, and again, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I mean, it sounds like you'll still be an F1 student when you transfer and start here. And I know we had emailed before about you being on STEM OPT and transferring. Yeah. I mean, gosh.
But you're on OPT, so that's gonna, so was it master's level OPT?
No, undergraduate.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, so I think what's going to be important at this point is to move forward with transferring your CVIS record, just as if your F1 status is continuing. While you wait, while your H-1B application is pending, because it's important for you to maintain that visa status, your student visa status, until you have a new status. Again, it's a personal choice, so you can make that decision, but that's what I would recommend. And in that case, you'll need to go through the steps of transferring your F1 visa over to UC Merced, so I can create your new UC Merced I-20. Once your H-1B approval process finishes and you receive that H-1B status, then you would be able to change your status with UC Merced. So with the registrar's office, for purposes of non-resident tuition, all of those things, you would be able to go through the steps of changing your status to H-1B from F1.
I see. And then do you know if switching to UC Merced ends my OPT work, so I won't be able to do CAP-GAP?
So doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, CAP-GAP is once you've been approved for an H-1B visa, and if your STEM OPT or OPT period ends before your H-1B starts. And so, and only if it's short term. So if you were to finish your STEM in like August, and then the H-1B would be starting in September, October. So it doesn't apply to you because that's not a pending status that you'll have, unless something changes. And then at that point you can let us know. But the moment you transfer your CVIS record to a new school, so to UC Merced, your benefits for STEM OPT or OPT end that day. Even if your EAD card states that you still can work, it stops. So you'll need to really work with your employer and with your current school and with us to decide what the best date for your transfer is. So if you want to wait as long as possible, absolutely you can, but it'll be important that you have your I-20 to us by the start of GROW. So by August 15th, you need to make sure that your record has been transferred to us. A few other things to consider also are that you need the UC Merced I-20 to be able to, if you are holding like a TA or GSR appointment and you need to do hiring paperwork, you need to have the UC Merced I-20 in hand to be able to complete your hiring paperwork and ensure that your onboarding is done in time to receive your first paycheck on time. So there obviously are multiple layers for you, Ed, that you need to think about. And since it's a very specific situation, I encourage I think you and I to continue this conversation offline.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, to discuss it even further. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for the question. Okay, Annabelle, I think you were next.
Yeah, I think first, I'm sorry. Becky, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to add that also you can't start your new program, your PhD program, until you've transferred. So that's really important too. I know the focus has been on employment here, but what's really important too is you want to, it's important that you start that before GROW to get that UC Merced I-20, because you can't start a new program until you have that I-20. So it's not just employment focused. So
thank you for adding that.
Let's do Annabelle, Lacey, and then we have some chat questions that we want to get to.
Okay, hello guys. My question is about the arrival. I read in the student's guide that as soon as we arrive in Merced, we need to report to the university and go there and finish all the paperwork. I think that's it. It's correct, right?
Yes. So what you do once you arrive in the United States or to Merced, if you're a transfer student, is you have to complete the process of checking in with our office. And this is just a requirement that we have from the Department of Homeland Security, that we need to be able to state that, yes, you've complied, you've checked in, you're here, you've arrived, you're registering in classes, and you're completing your orientation with us. So if you look on our new International Student Orientation page, we have links to the documents that you need to provide to us. And those documents include a new student check-in form that gives us your local information. So your contact information, such as where you're staying, so your address, your phone number, if you have a local one, a United States one, your email, all of that. So your contact information here locally. We also ask for a copy of your F1 or J1 visa, so we want to see that. And we ask for a copy of your I-94 arrival record. And that's something that's given to you basically when you arrive in the United States. The customs customs official, after reviewing your documents, admits you to the United States and electronically creates an arrival record for you. And so that's something that you'll be able to access. And we have all the links on our orientation webpage. And also I'll be emailing them all to you when we have a welcome email and our orientation too. Where you can actually pull up your arrival record and give that to us. If you have a dependent with you, like I know Annabelle, you'll have a dependent, you want to make sure that you also provide the F2 or J2 visa copy and the F2 or J2 arrival record, the I-94 as well. And so we ask for those documents. And once you've completed that, then I am able to register or validate you in CVIS, reporting that you've arrived, you've completed that step. And then I print out a new, if you're an F student, a new I-20 that shows that you are officially here, that you'll collect. And you'll also, if you are new to the United States, you'll receive a letter that you can take with you to the Social Security office to obtain your Social Security number.
Oh, okay. So that leads to my second question. It's about the Social Security number. I would like to know what is the deadline of the Social Security number to be created? And I don't know if it's because I want to rent an off-campus housing, and they all ask for the Social Security number. So I am kind of concerned about that, because as we don't have it, we can't apply for the housing. So I would like to know how much time I would have to wait for the Social Security number.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is always kind of a catch-22 tricky situation. So the Social Security number, I mean, for those of our students who are already in the United States transferring, they may already have this, a Social Security number. But for those of you arriving from overseas for the first time, to obtain your Social Security number, you have to wait until you've been in the country at least 10 business days. So that's not weekends, 10 business days. And it has to be after the start of the semester. So you have to be, basically, I have to make sure that your record is active in CVIS, that I've registered you, you've completed your check-in process and gone to our orientation. And then at that point, it has to be after the start of the semester. So after August 23rd, and then it has to be that you've been in the United States for at least 10 days at that point. So there's a lot of timing issues. Obviously, you can't wait to get housing until after the start of the semester, so that complicates things. What I can say is you can apply for housing and other things without a Social Security number. Of course, that's difficult, right? That makes it complicated. If you're looking to apply for housing and you need like a support letter, something that states that you are an international student on a visa who does not yet have a Social Security number, I'm happy to write a support letter like that. I've done that for our students in the past, that they've provided to these rental companies or to landlords to be able to review. It's not completely uncommon for them to be working with international students and renting to international students. Just so you're aware. So that is something we can write. And, you know, there may be other students who are better situated to discuss what they've been through in that situation than me. Another option, of course, if you want off-campus housing, is to, something that's very common here in Merced, is to rent like a room or part of a house from the owner of the house. That's something that many grad students do. I know you have a family, so that might be something that isn't as easy for you to do, but a lot of our students do that, and it doesn't require providing like a Social Security number up front, because you're doing a rental agreement directly with the owner of the home. Yeah, Becky, I don't know if you want to add, if I missed anything on that. Oh, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry. Can you re-ask the question? Sorry
it's just about how the Social Security number and housing. And I was just recommending, obviously, the trickiness of getting the Social Security, that I can write a support letter for students applying to the rental companies. Renting rooms in a house is also an option. But I think that's really kind of covers it as far as that goes.
Yeah, I didn't have anything to add to that.
Okay, just making sure. All right. So Annabelle, I know that that's not the most comprehensive answer, but do reach out to me if you'd like me to write a support letter for you, because I am happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I will arrive in Merced in July 20th. So I think that's kind of complicates things, but I will send you an email.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Annabelle. Let's go with a couple questions in the chat, and then we'll go with Omawumi, who has her hand up. So let's do Sharu. I think you also go by Winnie, but I think we need to clarify what happens when you get a visa, but before August 16th, can one still join? Do you mean after August 16th? Do you want to clarify if you're still on? Maybe Sharu?
Oh, yes, Shira, yes, after 16. So if you...
Okay. So yeah, so this is what, so after the deadline, so there's a couple of different things that we're looking at this year. So what we've asked is that everyone have their visa approval. And I know this is going to get more questions, so please feel free to throw those into the chat. But one of the things that we're doing this year is that we have the expectation that you will have your visa approved by July 15th. Okay, and I understand that that is difficult for a lot of folks, or that feels stressful. But there's a couple of different reasons why we're doing that this year. Is one, it's a lot of administrative work on both ends when we don't have you arrive by the expected deadline by GROW. Additionally, you miss a lot of the important and required trainings that you have to take in order to satisfy, excuse me, UCOP and UC Merced training guidelines before you can even be a TA. Secondly, you cannot miss coursework during this time. If you arrive, let's say in October, we cannot consciously say that you completed a full course of work during the semester when you have missed a month and a half. So there's a lot of different reasons why we're doing this, and also to alleviate some of the stress on you all and encourage you all to finish your visa processes early, because some can be very long and tedious. So let's do a scenario and we say, okay, you are in the middle of getting your visa approved and you have an appointment, but it doesn't look like you are going to meet that July 15th deadline. Now, what does that look like? Well, we will on July 15th send those folks who have not had their visas approved by then a form that is a late appeal process. Okay, and so what that means is you'll complete this form to the best of your knowledge, giving us all of the background information that you possibly can, showing us that you have a visa appointment, showing us that you've paid fees, that everything you've done in the most good faith to start this visa process and have it moving forward. Okay, and then what will happen is it will go to OIA, which is Lacey and Becky, Office of International Affairs, will review, and then they will send it to our dean, our graduate dean, who will then make the final decision and say, yes, it's feasible that this person can arrive based off of the information that you have provided, right? Everything that you have provided, that you will arrive by August 15th. Okay, so we're standing pretty hard on that deadline that we expect people to be here August 15th, 16th, first day of GROW. Okay, that's an expectation. Anything later than that would need special approval, and anything more than a couple of days will not be approved. We will ask that you defer to spring. Okay, so we're holding pretty hard to those deadlines. So I don't want to scare anyone or make anyone upset, but I just want you to be aware and understand the parameters that we're working in, so that's very clear. We want you to be here. We will do everything on our end to help you get here. But sometimes there are just barriers and legal parameters and visa issues that we just can't get past. And so we will do our best, and it's also going to be dependent on you all to do your best and provide us with as much information as possible so that our graduate dean can make the best decision at the end of the day, because really truly arriving late isn't really beneficial to you all. And so being here at the beginning of the semester, creating those cohorts, those relationships, getting all of that mandatory training is really, really, really crucial to your graduate career. Okay, so I know we're probably going to have more questions, but that I'm sure we did based off of that. But let's go to the next one and then we can come back to this. let's see, the next question was Camellia in the chat. You've signed a contract for on-campus housing. You wanted to see when you'll receive more information details. That should be coming very soon. Yesterday, they just sent me, or actually this morning, Camellia, they just sent me the final list of everyone. So I assume that you will be getting all of the additional information about your room, where you'll be staying, the amenities that are available in the room, what your stay includes, and then also who you will be rooming with. And also feel free to contact the housing department directly and ask them those questions. They should, at this point, have that information for you, okay? And then let's see, Moitrish had asked about resources for temporary housing. Thank you. I know that somebody Francisco threw that in the chat. Pushpita asked, is there any other resources that serve the same purpose for on-campus? No, unfortunately, that is it. The temporary housing is very limited, and it's limited to a very small period of time. And that's because our undergraduates are coming in, and they are staying in the same spaces that our temporary housing is located. And so they have to essentially, when you move out, turn the space over and allow students to move in. And that time period is a really tight period and a crunch time. And so that's why they don't offer it past, I think, like an August date typically. Okay. And then let's see, I know, I know that you had your hand up. Did you want to go now, Omowumi, or did you have your questions answered?
Oh, hi. My question was about housing. I don't know if it has been addressed before I joined. Can you hear me? Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is about housing. I saw that someone posted a link on transitional housing there, and I clicked on it. It said there's a limited number and then it's closed at this time. I was going to ask about the social security number, but someone else already asked and you already explained. That's why I lowered my hand. But my question now is to Lacey, the letter of support that you can write for us. Do you write that after we've arrived in Merced or before? Like if I'm talking to a landlord right now, could you provide me the letter now or after I've arrived in Merced?
Great question. I can provide it to you before or after you arrive. I will tell you the letter will be slightly different depending on if you're here or not here, but I can write it for you now or after. Just send me an email and tell me that's what you need, and I can get that to you in 2 to 3 business days.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And just as I wanted to put a heads up, I dropped in chat the information to our new international student orientation and check-in, the website, and also obtaining a social security number, our website that we have about that. Both are in the chat now. So those are great resources.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, I'm also a member of the UCM classifieds, where you see rooms for rent all over the place, really close to the university in Bellevue Ranch or Moraga, and they can range anywhere from $500–600 per room. And so that might be ideal your first semester, and they'll do it just for that, short term, some of them. So that might be an ideal situation for new students coming in, just until you learn the area, get situated, and then get your social security number to where you can apply for an apartment if that's what you want to do.
Thank you.
Jess, do you have those links from our housing information from that website? Can you drop those into the chat from our communication?
Yeah, I can do that right now. And then also I created a WhatsApp group for the fall 2023 incoming students as a way for you all to connect with each other if you find housing or, have questions for each other. So I'll drop that in the chat too. Just give me a minute or two.
Thank you. So we had one question, then we'll get to in the chat, and then we'll get to Shantanu. The iPhone user is asking, I wanted to know about the timeline for the process for TA interviews. Can you cover that part too? So that is dependent, that will be school related information. So it depends on what school you're in. they will assign you your TA appointments, okay? And those can actually change up until the point that you arrive, because it's dependent on what courses are needed, what the course loads look like, all of that information. So that information will come directly from your school contacts. So you should have received information from them about your appointments. Whether or not you've gotten an assignment yet, I don't know. That's dependent. That varies from school to school, but all of that information will come directly from them. The Graduate Division and the Office of International Affairs don't have anything to do with those appointments. They're school-based and based off of their needs. So if you have a question, if you want to throw in the chat what school you're in, I can send you the direct contact to who to reach out to for more information on that. Okay. And then let's go to Shantanu with your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. So I was the one who posted that question. So I just wanted to know about the TA appointments for the School of Biochemistry and Chemistry.
Okay, yeah. So I'll go ahead and throw in the chat the contact information for you. So your best bet is to reach out to them and ask them directly if they have an assignment for you. And as I said, they could say not yet. We'll let you know in a couple of weeks once we have those, kind of finalized, and they're kind of waiting to see how many graduate students end up coming, and we figure out like where the balance is needed, or they could have the assignments now. It really varies from group to group and from school to school. So I'll throw that in there. And then your best bet again is just to reach out to them directly, because they'll have those answers for you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, Lacey and Becky, we have a question in the chat. Janatul asks, when we arrive to the US, how long will it take to receive the remuneration for the first time? Since I have to bring US dollars for that time period, should I bring cash or an international card?
Okay, so the remuneration for the first time, I believe, and Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, you get your first paycheck on September 1st, as long as you've completed all of your hiring paperwork by August 16th. That's during the Grow Week. They will be doing that. So then you'll receive your first paycheck on September 1st. And again, that's if you've done your everything in time. So you mentioned, should I bring US dollars for that time period or an international card? Again, this is personal preference. I recommend bringing if you have access to an international debit or credit card that has like a Visa or MasterCard, ability, that's the best way to go, because you can use that at ATMs, so at the automatic teller machines to access cash. You can use that at all stores. You can use that at restaurants, groceries, markets, everything on campus. Most things are digital, so you can pay electronically if you have a Visa or MasterCard, Discover, or American Express ability like that, a card that has that. So a debit or credit card that has that is probably the most preferred method. Also, if you lose that card, you can get it replaced and stop access to it. Whereas if you lose cash, there's no replacing that. And also if you enter the United States, just a heads up with customs, if you enter the United States with 10,000 or more in cash, you do need to report that to customs and make sure that they're aware that you are coming in with that. But yeah, just be careful if you come with cash, because you don't want to lose that one. That's really unfortunate because you can't replace it. So I would recommend a debit or credit card that has a Visa or MasterCard ability. So,
and just to piggyback off of what you said, Becky, or Lacey, excuse me, is that please remember that your first paycheck is a partial paycheck. Okay, that will not be a full paycheck. Your first paycheck on September 1. So a couple of notes is that one, Lacey mentioned your paperwork has to be completed by August 16th. That is also a reason why we ask that you are here by that date, because if you don't, that means that your first paycheck is delayed. So now you have a partial paycheck, and it's going to be after the September 1st date that you would normally get it. So this is also why it's really crucial to have you here on time. And again, note that it is partial. So you're not going to receive your full paycheck until October 1. Okay, so you'll work the 2 weeks, you'll get paid the 2 weeks in August, partial pay September 1, work your full month in September, full paycheck on October 1. Okay, so that's why it's really important to have that financial planning ahead of time to account for those 2 weeks, because you will only have a partial paycheck. Okay. I think we're all caught up on questions, Lacey and Becky, unless folks have more in the chat that they want to drop in, or if there's anything else that you want clarification on. You have Lacey and Becky's ear right now, so I would ask away. So feel free to raise your hand and mute yourself, throw it in the chat. And as you can see, they have lots of knowledge and are able to answer those questions. Okay, Nariman asked in the chat, Lacey and Becky, I wonder whether financial support for grad students is available for summer or if it's just for semesters. I know this may be relevant to each department or each even advisor, but I asked because there might be any financial support or grants for international students.
Yeah, Nariman, like you said, it really is relevant to each department and advisor. But yes, many of our international students receive funding during the summer. And so they have that ability, but again, it's definitely up to the department and advisor.
Yeah. And I would also reiterate, yes, it is up to the department and advisor, and also tell you, ask now. There's nothing wrong with asking them now what summer funding looks like, trying to get ahead of it, asking them, do they have plans for summer funding? What are your options if you need to have summer funding? Does your department have TA appointments that they can have, or is there a summer fellowship that you can be on? Ask them what those plans are. There's nothing wrong with doing some of that pre-planning and asking those questions so that you're not scrambling at the last minute trying to figure out what you're going to do for those summers. Okay, because a lot of faculty already know what they are going to do for summer because they have a routine and they have a plan and they have funding set aside. So ask those questions and reach out to them. They won't be upset by it. I think it's actually really important to make sure that you're doing all of your due diligence to cover yourself. So those are questions that I would certainly reach out to about. Okay. All right. Anyone else for Becky and Lacey and their world of knowledge? Okay, Annabelle, shoot.
Hello again. So I have one more question about the paycheck. When we will know for sure what is the amount that we will receive, only when we arrive in Merced, or are we receiving some other letter with the right amount or something like that?
Yeah, so the amount that you received on your initial offer letter is really pretty accurate. It could vary very, very slightly, but the likelihood that it will is really, unlikely. So that's pretty much what the offer letter is, what you will be receiving. And it's also dependent upon the steps that you get. If you're a TA, as you go up the steps, your pay will increase based off of last year's contract. So the letter that you received will be pretty accurate, and there could be some slight variation, but you'll receive that information once you get here. But the likelihood that that's changing, it's not going to be a dramatic shift.
You need to take taxes and other deductions into consideration as well, though. So
yeah.
And that's why it's really important to do your hiring paperwork by that deadline. So all this is in place so that you can get that September 1st partial paycheck at least. But you won't know what you fully get until that next October 1st paycheck. So it's really hard to know for sure on taxes.
Yeah, you're right, Becky. Yeah, you won't know. Your October 1 will be your most accurate paycheck. Yep.
Oh, okay. So another question is because here in Brazil, when we receive the amount that we receive in our salaries, we receive by month, and in the letter is by year. So I would like to know if I divide for 12 months or just 9 months, because I talked to my advisor, and he said that sometimes they receive only 9 months of salary. So I would like to know more about it.
Yeah, so I would say reach out to, what school are you in, Annabelle? What group are you joining?
Environment systems.
Okay, so you're in SNS, is ES, SNS, Jess?
Engineering.
SOE. I always get that one. Okay, so I think both of those questions, I think one was SNS and then one was SOE. I'll throw that information in the chat, and that's again a good question for your school contact. They should have all of the details and all of the information regarding what the pay scale looks like for the time period. And so I don't want to give you misinformation because it kind of varies. And so it's best that you just reach out to them, and that would be either, I don't know if you've talked to Will, Vanessa, Jose, or Jennifer. Will be one of your contacts over there, depending on your group. And so it's best, I'll give you that general email, reach out to that. They'll put you in contact with the appropriate person, and then just lay out all of your questions there.
I have a question. Okay. How do they get their first paycheck? Is it by, so when they're doing their hiring paperwork, and they have that option to do direct deposit if they've opened a US bank account, if they have not done that, is their first paycheck a physical check that they pick up, or is it mailed to whatever address they have input when they do their hiring intake?
Yeah, so your first paycheck is always a physical paycheck. That's a really good question, Becky. It's always a physical paycheck. It essentially takes one cycle through the pay period to get you into the direct deposit. And so they will send it to whatever address you register on your payroll with. So make sure that you're using the address that you are physically here. You don't want to use an address in your home country, because then that physical paycheck will be sent to your home country and it will not be sent here. I know there's also an option to have it picked up on campus, like at the cashier. So that's also a question that you can ask the payroll services when you're filling out that paperwork, if that's an option, because if you're kind of transitioning between places and you don't have somewhere that you know you're going to be for, you know, that period of time, or you're transitioning to a different place, as a lot of people do in that first couple of weeks, then it might be best to have it picked up at the cashier's office here on campus, so that you know it's guaranteed to be in a place. Yeah, but it always takes one pay cycle to get through the system to do direct deposit.
Or maybe if you can touch on bank information. I don't know if we've already touched on that, but how to open up a US bank account in case you want to sign up for the direct deposit when you are doing your hiring intake paperwork on your arrival, which when is hiring intake? Is that the 15th, 16th, or?
Yeah, 15th,
16th, and it has to be done by the 16th by 4. And we'll give you some opportunities, but again, this is also why it's really important that you're here to get that stuff done. So Lacey, I don't know if you want to touch on banking a little bit, and then we also have some more questions and a hand.
Yeah, so once you're here, I recommend opening a bank account right away for a United States bank account. We do have, in our arrival guide we have that I've sent each of you, you have a list of the different banks that are available locally. We can also find that online. I need to find their website and drop that in here, but you can open a bank account and you'll need basically your immigration documents. So your passport, your I-20 or DS 2019, all of those documents. If you need a support letter, I can write a support letter to explain that you don't have a social security number yet. But a social security number is not required to open a bank account in the United States. But I strongly recommend you do that first thing when you get here, because that way, once you are, signing up for your direct deposit, you'll have a United States bank account that you can access and get that distributed too.
All right, let's go with the hand raise with Perian.
Hello. I got an email with my Mercer account that was an application for the part-time job offer. I filled out the application form, then several days later, I received a Gmail directly from the employer that I got selected between other applicants to be personal assistant. I was really confused because I was asked by the employer to send my USA zip code, address, and phone number. I would like to know if that was a real job offer, and I want to know if international graduate students are allowed to work these part-time jobs.
Okay, yeah, we also had a similar question from Camelia about what are the restrictions, but let me first say, no, I believe that was a scam that you received. Actually, we've all been getting that same email from a UC Merced account that's been offering these part-time jobs as an assistant. That's a scam. I encourage you to ignore it. You can report it to our on-campus IT office as well. But I got that a couple times and forwarded that to report it. Sorry that it's not legitimate, but it's not. Be very wary of those types of offers. I know it looks legitimate because it came from a UC Merced email address, but it is not. So someone is spoofing it and basically trying to scam. So please ignore any more emails from that to your Gmail account, or otherwise it is not a legitimate job offer. I know you were asking, can you work? And also Camelia, just to read her question so I can put these together. She says, what restrictions are there for international students for working? Are we only allowed to do university related jobs? What about in summers? Is there a limit on working hours during each week? So as an international student, there are very strict regulations around your ability to work on an F1 or J1 visa. So you are permitted to work on campus. So the campus at which your I-20 or DS 2019 is granted. So UC Merced and our affiliates, you can work on campus. During the semesters when you're enrolled, you can work up to 20 hours per week. That's considered part-time. So you can work up to 20 hours per week. During summer breaks or other holiday breaks, so winter break, spring break, or holidays, you are permitted to work full-time, so part-time or full-time during breaks on campus. What I will say are, and we'll get into this when you arrive and we go through our orientation, we'll dig into this more about off-campus work authorization. Off-campus work authorization is something that you always have to get permission for before you engage in. So if there's ever an opportunity off campus, whether it's paid, unpaid, an internship related to your degree, not related to your degree, just something you find driving cars, delivering, creating things, or something with a company, you have to get approval before you're able to work off campus. And there's very strict regulations around that. Usually it involves things called CPT or OPT that you get granted. You have to apply for it and be granted approval. And there are restrictions on how many hours you can work for those too. You're usually not eligible for that until you've been on valid F status for at least one academic year, which is 2 semesters in the United States. And so that's something that comes later. But again, we'll dig into that into much more detail at our orientation. I think, let's see, did I cover most of that? Again, you can only work up to 20 hours per week during the semester. So if you are receiving an appointment on campus, like a TA position or a GSR position, typically those are 20-hour per week positions. So you really wouldn't be able to get another on-campus job. However, if you don't have an on-campus job already, or you're doing less than the 20 hours per week that your job offer indicates that you do less, then you would be able to get an on-campus position. So there's all kinds of on-campus positions. Some are research, some are assistants, some are working in a cafe or the dining services. There's all different types of opportunities, but I know most of you probably will be holding a TA or a GSR position, which would make it where you would not be able to hold an additional on-campus position.
All right. And then just to piggyback off of that, Lacey, somebody asked, can the dependents study or work? Thank you, Becky. You answered that in chat, but maybe you can also.
Yeah, I didn't see what Becky wrote, but I know she covered it. But just to reiterate, if you have a dependent with you, so a dependent, just to be clear for folks, a dependent is either a spouse or an unmarried child under the age of 21 that you have coming with you. So if you're an F1, your dependent would be called an F2, and they would hold an F2 visa. If you're a J1, your dependent would be a J2. The difference there, so for F2 dependents, no, they cannot work. Employment is not allowed. Okay, so cannot do it. They also cannot study unless they are like a child. Children are able to study, but if they're an adult, like a spouse or an older child over the age of, over the normal school age, they would not be able to study unless it's part-time. And it's incidental or recreational in nature, which means they're not seeking like a degree or a certificate of any kind. For J2 dependent, they can work, but there's an application process. They have to apply to get their employment authorization document, which is a work authorization card. And so they have to go through that process. And again, that's something I can guide you through upon arrival.
Thank you. And then we have a couple more. I know somebody asked about immunizations for international students, and it was in the chat, but we also have a health services webinar that will also have Michelle Law, who is also in the contacts that Lacey or Becky threw in. So if you want to ask some of those questions in person, this is a great time to do it. And so watch your email for those dates. And then also one more, I think we have time for one more question. Lacey Nerriman asked, regarding doing the internship, can we have multiple internships in other UC campuses? I mean, related to the PhD project, working with other professors, is that going to restrict us for OTP permission later, which I guess may be for 3 years after graduation?
Okay, so yeah, loaded question a little bit, and we'll definitely get into these details at orientation, but to give a basic overview, if you do any types of off-campus work, so even at another UC campus, that's considered off-campus work. So unless it's UC Merced specific, it's off-campus work, and you would require work authorization. There's different types of work authorization, like I said, CPT or OPT. CPT is a curricular practical training and is usually the more common one that students use for internships when they're here. To be eligible for something like that, again, you have to be in valid F status for at least 1 academic year, 2 semesters before you can apply. So I know as a transfer student, I believe, Nariman, you're a transfer student, that you may be able to apply earlier than someone arriving from outside of the United States. But it's just a matter of reaching out to me and saying, hey, can I do this? What's the process to be able to apply and get work authorization? And I can guide you through that. When you're referring to OPT, so optional practical training, that's an employment benefit that you can have either during your degree or after, up to 3 years after your degree. You know, it's dependent on whether or not an internship might affect your ability to apply for that. If you use, getting technical on you guys, if you use up to 12 months of full-time CPT during your degree, you no longer have the ability to apply for OPT, but that's not very common. And it's something we work with you closely on to make sure that you're aware of before you get into that kind of situation. So again, these are great questions, and we'll dig into them at orientation. And they're also things that I'm happy to answer with you as you encounter them. So as you find internships or see work opportunities that you're interested in, it's so important to keep that relationship with our office, with me, to be able to discuss like, hey, can I do this with my visa status? And I can walk you through it and talk to you about how you can or how you cannot and why not. So, you know, this is obviously one of the first times we've seen each other face to face, or at least my face. I can't see all of you, but I hope, you know, that you understand that once you're here, I'm your DSO or ARO, and that means I'm your international advisor, and I work with you closely, and we have a relationship, and we really talk a lot. We communicate, you know, we see each other. I'm your major resource. And so don't ever be afraid to ask questions or bring things up. And if it's something that I can't answer, as you saw, we had some questions about like housing and paychecks, and okay, that's not necessarily my area of expertise, but you know, we can get you to the people who can answer those questions. So if you don't know where to start with me, and I'm happy to guide you and get you pointed in the right direction or answer what I can. So I never want you to be in a situation where you're questioning your immigration or visa status. And so always come to me and ask, and I'm happy to guide you through that.
Thank you, Lacey. So I think that is our time. Perfect timing. Absolutely magnificent. So first off, thank you to all of you for joining us from all of your home countries and wherever you are in the time differences. Thank you for the great questions and for being so open with those. We really appreciate it. And then thank you to Becky and Lacey from Office of International Affairs. We really appreciate the partnership and all of the wonderful information. Again, should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the PreGROW site or directly to Becky and Lacey. And as I said, we will point you in the right direction. This will also be available for viewing after the fact, so that if there's anything that you may have missed in the beginning or anything that you wanted to go back and kind of clarify, we will have this available on our site. Correct, Jess? Yep. All right. And then we'll also send a link in our next GROW communication with some of the past GROW videos in case you missed them for PreGROW. So Jess, is there anything else? A plug for our next one?
So we're taking a break next week. We have a holiday here in the US. We have 4th of July. So we will be back, I think, on July 12th. So just keep an eye out on your emails, and we'll be sending you some more information on our next session. So thank you, everyone, and we look forward to connecting with you again in a couple weeks. Have a great day.
Thank you all.